So let's shake things up a little bit. I know it's been a bloody long day, and I'm saying bloody, underscore, bold, italics, all of that with marker of yellow and orange behind. Let's have a show of hands. Nobody's asked you to put up your hand. I'm sure your hands are tired. Let's have a show of hands. Who of all of you sitting here have a savings bank account? Now, don't throw shoes at me. I'm not very good at dodging shoes, but yeah, you don't have a savings bank account? You have a savings bank account? If you don't have a savings bank account, I'm sure that there's a banker in town here. Excellent. Now, when was the last time you actually stepped into a retail branch to bank with your bank? When was the last time?
Probably long back, actually.
Define the long back.
2 or 3 months ago, but that was for a specific purpose. Most of the time I do it online.
Online, right. When did you step into your bank? A few months ago. When did you step into your bank? Demonetization. Excellent. Give him a large round of applause. Okay, wonderful. So, clearly, we don't really go into our banks to really speak to our bank and transact with our banks. But how the hell, and again, how the hell, I'm taking liberties, it's the last session of the day. How the hell do we bank? How do you bank with your bank? Applications, wonderful. Ma'am, how do you bank with your bank? How do you speak to your bank? Online. Clearly, so we use mobile applications, we use IVR, we use online, and put your hand on your heart and say, when was the last time you picked up the phone on that lady who spoke to you on customer service and you said, ma'am, cloud kaun sa use kar rahe ho aap iske piche? You never asked that. And when was the last time you actually went to ATM and said, ye secure hoga? No. What you expect is 2 things. Whenever you bank with your bank across IVR, across mobile telephony, across applications, the 2 baselines of expectations that we have across these conversations. 2 things. 1, actually 3. 1, your bank will know you irrespective of the touch point. You go to an ATM, you go to a mobile phone, you go to an IVR, you go to anything, your bank will know you, know the balance, know your Aadhaar card, know everything about you. That's the first expectation. The second expectation is, whenever I touch my bank, the experience has to be great. Ye nahi ho sakta, I call my IVR and the lady doesn't respond. Can't be that I'm trying to sort of change, let's say, transfer some money on my mobile application. It doesn't happen. So second thing, baseline expectation today is experience. What's the third baseline expectation? The third baseline expectation is security. That irrespective of wherever I go and touch my bank, my data is going to be secure. Yes or not? Would you guys agree? Surprise, surprise. Anybody and everybody who touches any service today expects the same thing. So before you go back tonight, the only 3 things I want to take back, I want you to take back, in fact, be it IoT, be it 5G, be it anything here, ultimately, it's all about 3 things. How well do you know your customer, seamless customer experience, and secure customer experiences. Having said that, the need to put onus and focus on these things is all of a sudden very high. Because you're transacting in milliseconds now. It's no more about transacting on 3 minutes, 4 minute time curves. You're actually dealing with your customer's data in 1, 2, 3 milliseconds. So we're going to talk about a lot of this. And when I was sort of constructing, we have a sort of a large audience talking to another large audience. And when I was sort of thinking through what I must sort of speak to these lovely ladies and gents, the fact that we have a lady in the town, that really helps. I wanted to I was thinking deep about this. What should be the structure? What should I talk to them about? And I had a very interesting parallel that I wanted to share with you before I actually go into this conversation. The interesting parallel that I had, I had a small, thank you. The interesting parallel that I had was that,
sir, one more information.
Please. Sir, we will talk, sir.
About payment bank.
So we'll talk about it. Great point. We'll talk about it. But let me just finish the story and let me just get the attention of these lovely people here, right? I forgot now, sir. Anyway, what I was saying was that the way artificial intelligence has developed over the last 5 decades is very similar to how IoT and how 5G is developing as well. If you go back 5 decades, artificial intelligence was always existing. The only reason we see a huge uptake of artificial intelligence in the last 10 years is a few reasons. First of all is Moore's law. We now have availability of great compute at cheap prices, which means that we're able to sort of consume that compute and try anything we want from an artificial intelligence point of view. Second of all, what we have is open source based codes, wherein the learning curve is much lesser. The third thing, and the most important thing here, is the fact that all these algorithms were probably developed 10 years ago are consuming data that was probably inexistent before time. And the fourth biggest thing, which I think is the biggest parallel to the evolution of 5G here, is the fact that applicability to industries has only come across for artificial intelligence in the last 10 years. Before that, it was only a body of research which was absolutely not even relevant to industries. And same is what we see with 5G, and same is what we see with IoT. So with that basis, what we love to do is to use this panel to understand what they're doing on the ground, what sort of use cases are they driving, and this idea about applicability to industries, how is that helping 5G and IoT become mainstream? So, with that premise in mind, I'd love to start from a user, and I always love to start from users, MG Motor. So Gaurav, I'd love to start from you. Congratulations, you launched a wonderful car in a very crowded space. Hector has done fantastically well. Now, India was used to sort of having an IoT story in Mahindra XUV until now, but Hector came in with that badge of Internet Inside. Can you tell the audience as to why Hector is probably a true IoT story, and how was the product developed over the course of time?
You said a very interesting point. That a car company being on the panel, we're talking in a telecom conference. This itself reflects, how connected we are today and how our journey will evolve in the future. I think I want to first thank you for your compliments to the Hector. I think we're just starting, and I think we have a long way to go to prove ourselves. Like you said, our focus will be on customer service and engaging with our customers, and I'm sure our team and everyone will work tirelessly towards that. But coming back to your question, I think the bedrock of the MG Hector, the iSmart, is IoT. Because you're talking of connectivity altogether. So if you look at IoT, you have three key verticals. You have smartphones, smart homes, and now connected mobility. And that is where our iSmart in the MG Hector comes into play. And it's not just the OEM or the automaker who can make this work. It's actually the partnership, the ecosystem that we have in place that makes it come to life. In the case of the iSmart, we have the partnership starts from the connectivity part itself. So we've got, on the stage, we have Juergen from UNLIMIT, we've got Airtel, as well as Cisco Jasper. They've taken care of our connectivity part. We've also got now in that voice application. So we've got voice through Nuance, which comes into play. Keeping all this data secure is Microsoft using in their Azure cloud in India itself. So that's data security. Then comes the role of applications. So we've got now Ghana taking care of the music, the entertainment part of it. Utility is to take care of AccuWeather through weather, and of course maps and navigation through TomTom. So all of this comes together. The key part which binds all this is our backend, which then again becomes how does the consumer benefit through all this? Right. So the clear benefits of this will be vehicle safety and occupant safety. In the case of the Hector, should something go wrong, we have an e-call that it triggers automatic calls on your mobiles. If that doesn't get answered, secondary mobile, it triggers back-end emergency services to come to rescue. So that's that's safety which takes care of. Utility comes into play as well, and entertainment in terms of Ghana, and likewise. So the three verticals of utility, safety, entertainment come together for consumer experience, but the ecosystem is what binds them together, and they lie as a platform moving further.
Right, and you made two very interesting points, which is one is data and the other is safety. Now let me wear a bit of a cynical analyst hat here and sort of quiz you on this. When it comes to safety, the fact is any car, any vehicle which is moving on the road must respond in 1 or 2 milliseconds time to sort of ensure there is no impact and ensure that there is absolute safety on the roads. Now, in the light of the fact that we still don't have 5G and response times on a 4G backend is only sort of 30, 40 milliseconds at best, how do you sort of negate this part? And more importantly, when sort of 5G is rolled out in the eventuality, how do you expect this to change?
So, interestingly, one could either just wait and not launch the great technology we have for the consumers. Sure. Or we just said, we'll just go ahead and launch this. And we know that today in India, even 4G is not very well consistent across the country. But we're taking a leap of faith,
Right.
and we want to get along and make consumers experience what we have to offer.
Right.
Now, of course, in terms of the speed, 4G is, of course, much lower than 5G, so all of it evolves moving further. So when we go to less than a millisecond, ultra-low latency with the 5G, all this will play a very, very effective role for safety, for that connectivity, for those precious milliseconds for communication. And this also expands to the next level, when we're talking of autonomous vehicles. When they are into the V2X connectivity space, that's where 5G really starts to define the overall integrated system.
Interesting. So, the fact that, the autonomous vehicles is a big push from the government, and that's a big thumbs up to the Modi government on that. But talk to me about the fact that, you said that moving vehicle, which is like a small data center in itself, is collecting a ton of data. Now, how does that data go back? And how do you use it for, let's say, product refinement or, let's say, product localization? So give us a sense of that, please.
So I think the effort of the government today is to first go step by step. I think electric vehicle is the current need of the hour and the direction of the government. And I think as MG, we are key that we are getting our first pure electric vehicle into the country by the end of this year. Moving on to the second part about data, all the data that we have is resting in the Microsoft Azure cloud.
Right.
And Microsoft is the world leader in data integrity, data secrecy, and data control and data security. So in that case, I think all of us have to be assured about that fact. The key part is that using the IoT, all the interactions you have in the vehicle, all the inter-device connector sensors, etc., all that data for vehicle improvement is collected, and that will help any automotive manufacturer who has that in the car to improve the technology for a better customer experience.
So the car is not listening to when me and my wife fight, right?
Well, whatever happens in the car, it remains in the car.
Stays in the car, right? Wonderful. Okay. On that topic, Dinesh, let me come to you. The fact is that customers and organizations are now going all out. As he said very rightfully, that you can't wait for the technology to evolve and then sort of bring out a product. Now, in the light of that, traditionally, if you look at IoT as an environment, it has sort of struggled because it's been a very CapEx-heavy environment, and there's been sort of lack of standardization, if you may, which has only meant that the ROI over a course of time has been extremely low. Now, I know you're somebody who's sort of very vocal about this. Can you talk to us the journey that we've taken, and where does this entire metric of ROI stands today? Because better the ROI, better the use case, and better implementations, of course.
Let me begin from a standards perspective, how this has evolved. If you talk about from a release perspective, today when we talk about 5G, we're talking about enhanced mobile broadband, which is a release 15, okay, which has been frozen. But when you see the same releases from a machine-type communications or machine-to-machine or IoT, the first release was developed in release 8. So the standard for the machine-type communications or machine-to-machine or IoT was developed in release 8. From release 8 until release 13, the IoT has been developed for GSM, the IoT has been developed for LTE, and then IoT has also been developed in a terminology called narrowband IoT. So yes, from a standards perspective, the work was done long back. Release 13 was frozen long back. But yes, the rollout did not happen because the high capex. Now when you see high capex, the major component in the IoT is the chipset. But now the time has changed, because if you see from a rollout perspective today, from a narrowband IoT or LTE-M, which is machine-type communications, if you just do a Google with a WikiLeaks, you will see the information that 149 operators in 69 countries investing in narrowband IoT or LTE-M. And out of which 104 operators in 3 countries have already deployed it. Now this is an inflection point. Now, when you talk about a real rollout, you need to have a use case.
Right.
In India, it started rolling out long back, but again, piecemeal was happening, but I think we are at the right inflection point because the chipset cost has gone down, because you yourself said it from an AI perspective.
Moore's law, yeah.
Moore's law.
Right.
And same thing is happening from a IoT perspective as well. So I think the challenge of high capex and ROI has gone, because now today we see a lot of use cases. You need not wait for 5G, of course. When you talk about IoT, even LTE is self-sufficient. Even GSM has the enhanced coverage GSM IoT. So even on GSM technologies or LTE, you can roll out the IoT. But of course, there will be use cases which will demand for 5G. So to answer your questions, I think the challenge has been addressed by technology evolution. High battery life cycle of that particular device has gone up. Chipset cost has come down. Yes, we need a real use cases in India by which we can actually make a massive rollout. Where I see government policy will also support it. The another bottleneck which I see and hear from industry people who are rolling out piecemeal these different technologies, they're waiting for a real guideline for these machine-to-machine service providers. They're waiting for it. There is a big question because TRAI has come out with recommendations.
Right. But the fact is the industry is still sort of infested with a ton of fragmentation. And, there's a very interesting one M2M partnership project that you have. Can you quickly brief us as to what's been the progress that you've made in one M2M project? And why is it even critical for the industry as such?
That's a good question. So if you go back and see the history of 3GPP, that was a third generation partnership project, which was a project where standard development organizations from around the world come together, work together, and develop these specifications together. So in 2012, July 2012, the fragmentation was happening. There was a proprietary solutions, one applications, one platform. So the global standard organizations realized this challenge. And then they said, it's a huge area. Let's set up a similar project like 3GPP. So they set up this project called One M2M Partnership Project, which is on the similar lines, similar stakeholders, same industry working together to develop specifications for IoT. But they're not addressing vertical. They're addressing a common service layer. If you see the network layer from a layered perspective, you have a network, you have a service layer, you have an application layer. They said, let the application developer develop the applications. Let them determine which application is important. Let's address this common service layer, which could become a plug and play system. Tomorrow you develop an application, specifications are out. One M2M has published those specifications, so they just plug and play kind of role. So they developed a common service layer platform. Good news is we have a TSDSI from India who is a organizational partner to 3GPP, and they are also a partner type 1 for 1M2M as well, which means Indian requirement also goes back to 1M2M. So this platform has been developed. Release 3 has been frozen. Even ITU has acknowledged release 2.
Okay.
It's ready for commercial rollout. In India, TSDSI has already transposed these specifications already. Now these specifications are getting studied through a round of consultation at Telecommunication Engineering Center. They want to release these specifications as a national standard. And that is needed very importantly because in smart city, the major component is ICT.
Right.
And CDOT, which is our Indian research organization, has already developed a platform based on it. And they are working with a lot of startups to develop different applications for India specific. Even Bhopal Smart City, for example, has implemented HP system, which is again based on 1M2M. So 1M2M has addressed the challenge of fragmentation. They said, come, work together, work with us.
But Dinesh, quickly tell me, there's been a sort of a dilemma within the industry, which is, although you sort of have a very strong European representation, European representation is not the global representation really. So there's sort of a disconnect between which standards do we sort of comply with? Do we go with the EU standards or the global truly standards? How does the industry think about that?
That's a good question, actually. That's what it always comes up in somebody's mind that India is different. India need to have an Indian-specific use cases. But one fact is very clear when you talk about ICT and especially telecom, we all hear a word called interoperability. When it is interoperability, you cannot have regional or a local standard. It has to be a global standard. If you really want a global standard which is interoperable, it has to be based on 3GPP or 1M2M. So when I represent European, and when you talk about ICT, it's not a European standard at all. It's a global standard getting implemented all across.
So yeah, I mean, just hard on you.
No, it's fine.
Ms. Kumar, I'll go on to you. Thank you, Dinesh, for your time. Really appreciate that. Ms. Pamela Kumar, you represent a very interesting organization, the youngest in the country and the most aggressive of them lot, trying to sort of push the agenda on India asks around the standards. So when this body was formed, can you talk to us about the charter that you sort of laid out ahead of the body? Because you know, from what I read online, spoke to you, it's a very researcher-heavy body. So talk to us about what India asks are you going after?
So, you asked me also to make this a little fun and interactive,
Of course,
right?
please,
Being
yes.
the last session. So how many of you know what TSDSI stands for? Arms, show. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just about 4 people in this august audience, right? That's why we gave you those flyers, right? Embedded inside the agenda were the TSDSI flyers. Please take some time and look at them. So TSDSI is the Telecom Standards Development Society of India, and Telecom has merged with ICT. So it's essentially, it's all become one, and so we basically own the agenda for developing standards in the ICT space. Now, in order to answer your question, you know what I thought? Being an SDO, we are an SDO, right? SDOs always run with a very firm set of rules on how to develop standards. So we have a rule book too. And if you go to our website, you'll find our document called the RNR, the Rules and Regulations book. And I said, instead of me trying to articulate this, let me read out the para number 2.1, which is the preamble of the TSDSI RNR. It says, and this was developed, I think around 2012, 2013 is when this work started on working on the RNR. And officially only in 2000, sorry, I lost that page. So only in 2014 we got registered as an SDO. And let me go back to the preamble here. The preamble. Okay. So this is what it reads. There is a pressing need to project Indian interests, articulate service provider requirements, and promote Indian IPRs into international standards and products. This will go a long way in helping to create an ecosystem for telecom equipment manufacturing in India, which is not a viable business proposition today due to significant outflow towards IPR licensing costs. Establishing a national telecom standards development organization is key to achieving these objectives. A standards development organization to meet a standards development organization will help India to develop standards for telecom products and services to meet India's specific requirements, which is expected to promote indigenous R&D and manufacturing. Developmental process will also help in creating Indian IPRs. With the development of new national standards, India will be in a position to influence various international telecom SDOs and forums in the development of global standards and inclusion of Indian IPRs and Indian requirements. So that's essentially our charter. And it says it very loud and clear that standards is about studying Indian requirements. So we've been laggards in adoption of technology. 2G, 3G, 4G have been the era of us embracing technology which is already 5 to 10 years mature. So what do? Technology is there, products are there, they were not developed for our requirements. We beggars can't be choosers. We take what is there and we try to force fit it, and it is not optimal. If we want to drive the direction of technology, and we have seen the way we have embraced technology is different.
Right.
The rate. So that's basically what our charter is, and that's what we're all about.
One of the key asks I clearly understand is India innovation. It's not just about India requirements, but it's also R&D coming out of India. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now, one of the points of debate, discussion, and probably fire and anger in public has been the disconnect around LMLC. You've been sort of asking for LMLC. So can you explain why LMLC for the country is absolutely fundamental, and why, how will it drive sort of India stamp on 5G standards globally?
So LMLC is an extremely good example of why India-specific requirements and India-specific innovation is important. So what does LMLC stand for? LMLC stands for Low Mobility Large Cell. Okay? So we were sitting in the ITU meeting when we first took the proposal of LMLC. And in the IMT 2020, which is also known as 5G, okay, the specifications were being discussed. And they were discussing one of the scenarios called Rural EMBB. Under the Rural EMBB scenario, there were two proposals on the table. What were those two proposals? One was from North America and Europe, talking about the fact that there were highways in the villages on which 125 km/h vehicles were running, and they wanted reliable 100 Mbps connectivity on these vehicles. There was second proposal was from China, and what did they want? They said in our villages we have 500 km/h bullet trains running through the villages, and we want 100 Mbps connectivity at 500 km/h. And we said, hey guys, this is not what rural MBB means to us. 70% of our population lives in the villages. What do we want for them? We want reliable 100 Mbps for every man in the street, whether he's in a bullock cart or he's in a 30 km/h train on a dirt track. Okay?
Or in an MG Hector.
It's a good plug, by the way.
Okay? So what did we do? We put a proposal based on research done in our institutes that you can provide this low mobility large cell. You can extend the inter-site distance. And we were opposed by everybody that, you know, this is not a concept or whatever. We had to get Africa and African countries and then Russia and then Australia and then US, you know, all the countries rally around us, and finally we made it to this. And in terms of what this debate is and where we stand, let me give you a very good analogy. So you remember the 1984 World Cup, right? What happened? Unexpected by everybody, India reached the final, right? And that's what's happened on LMLC. Unexpected by anybody, this proposal reached the technical requirements of the ITU IMT 2020 requirements document, the TPR document. In June of 2017, it became a mandatory specification of IMT 2020. So that was like winning the first inning of the World Cup. The first inning of the World Cup being played out, right? So the first inning has been played out. We did not bat it, right? But the goal has been set. So in the goals, LMLC is one of them. Now what is happening? Now we are batting. And all the bowlers, the best bowlers in the world are trying to get us out.
We just got out of the World Cup, by the way.
Without this goal being reached.
No, we just lost the World Cup, so it's a bad example, honestly.
Huh?
We just lost the World Cup, so it's a bad example.
No. But let me, I'm talking about the 1984.
Sure, I understand.
Okay? And TSDSI is the IPL, okay?
Sure,
By the
wonderful.
way. So that's where we are really. We were almost run out this July when we made our RIT proposal, the technical specifications which contain the IPR that has been developed for IMT 2020 within India. We have made that proposal at ITU, and we were almost run out, and I think the what is it called? The third eye, looked at it and said, no, they're not run out. Okay.
Good. Excellent.
So that's really where we are.
So you're all about two things, the India asks and the India innovation, right? Perfect, thank you. Before I go on to the involvement of IIT into this charter, in the, one of our friends here, Juergen, has to leave because his big boss is calling. Big boss means Mr. Ambani or the wife? Who's the big boss here?
It's the big boss is the wife.
The big boss is the wife, okay. But who's calling right now?
The other big boss.
Okay, Ms. Kumar made some great examples and sort of made a huge case about the India asks. Now, as an organization, UNLIMIT, you're India born for the India, you're sort of championing great amount of sort of ideas and solutions. Give us a sense of, in your charter at UNLIMIT, what are some of those key vanilla opportunities that you're going after, and where do you aim to solve the India IoT/5G problem?
Okay, first of all, it's a young organization. We're just 3 years on the market, and again, we are very proud. I believe that we're all together as a team, and this is a very important one, as a team together with all the partners. We have set up a benchmark regarding execution of IoT in a connected car. So again, what we have done is really working very close together and trying to implement a very open architecture so that we are ready for the future. From the history side, and I've made this many times in the last 12 years in the IoT, or before it was called machine-to-machine spaces, we have implemented silos. And if you're now looking at what we have done all together in the MG case, we have implemented much more an open architecture with open APIs and all the other things. And it has to be ready for a future, and you don't know what is coming up next, coming to 5G. Yes, all the time. It's like buying a smartphone. You can buy a smartphone now, or you can say, okay, in autumn the new iPhone is coming. Let's wait. You can all the time wait. That doesn't work. That means you have to implement what's existing now. Now it's 2G/4G, and you have to implement this technology now. But what's coming up with 5G, I believe, much more closer to real-time services. Real-time will come up. My generation, I've bought the vinyl and I've also bought the CDs, the digital. Then I've bought all the MP3 music. My kids never will buy something. They're using streaming services. And if we're looking to streaming service and all these things, we need bandwidth. We need bandwidth in real time or close to, or the emergency call you just mentioned before. If there's any emergency activity, it has to come directly.
Right.
And also, I personally believe the car in the future is defined by new services coming up again and again and again.
Right.
That means you have to download a new service to the car. That means also this is relevant for the future, that you can download a car, new features in a very short time with a peak. And there 5G is also a huge advantage for this one.
But tell me, you can, everybody sort of sits on great-looking panels and talks about these sexy things, Industry 4.0, autonomous vehicles, but these are not India problems. The India problem is downstream supply chain, right? India problem is waste management. India problem is actually vehicle management. India problem is traffic management. So talk to me about what UNLIMIT is doing to solve real India problems. Let's forget about the sexiness in town, which is called MG hectare, which is probably 0.01% of the India population can afford any which way, right?
First of all, thank you that you mentioned that UNLIMIT is sexy. That's good. It's a little bit like fly to the moon. Sometimes you need something very special, very in advance.
Sure.
But what we're also doing, you mentioned it before, if you're looking to rural area, you have 2G. And what we are doing, for example, in the transport and logistic, taking care of expensive goods, which are carrying across the country, and it works wonderful in urban area. You can use the 4G approach, wonderful services, but it also has to work in the rural areas.
Right.
So, and for this, for example, we are developing devices and services on top of this, which are also working on the basic services in these rural areas. That means it works there on 2G and with additional services in the 4G area.
Right.
So, and another example is coming to smart cities. In smart cities, everybody's talking about the big picture. A wonderful screen where you can manage a full city, whatever you want to click here, there. You can manage a full city from your hometown, from your knock, but you have to serve basics.
Right.
Basics. It's like water management, traffic management. What we are doing is really serving this one part, not looking to the full picture of the umbrella, but from the architecture ready for this. That means what we are doing now is solving problems in clean water, solving problems in waste management. But from the architecture that later on we can plug all these systems in a layer beyond for the next phase. But phase one means make it happen. Connect it, simple rule-based analytic tools, and later on services beyond this we are doing.
Okay, interesting. So that layer essentially is both backward integrated and forward integrated.
Yeah, again, the architecture has to be ready for this. Not that 20 years before, what we all have done in the telco sector, a new service is coming, okay, that means new infrastructure. So
Okay,
this is changing now.
Oh, great.
We have to reuse it again and again and to optimize your CapEx.
Interesting. And I have a last final question for you on the closure, which is very operational in nature. You know, UNLIMIT is not really it's a Reliance subsidiary, but it's not really part of the main company. It's a hive off. Why that? Why not? Let's say, globally, telcos all across have IoT as part of their main forte.
I'm very honest. I've implemented IoT in Deutsche Telekom 10 years before. in a huge organization, in a big tanker. We have done the same in the Middle East, in the Radio Group, in a big tanker. And the key lesson learned is, to be honest, I never would do it again. I like to work for these companies, but to implement such an agile technology, you have to be as independent as possible. I give you an example is, in Deutsche Telekom, IoT works with some partner ecosystem. That means you have all these wonderful, cool partners. Now, the small ones, 10 people, 20 people, startup companies, and you're signing a contract with the partner. And normally in Deutsche Telekom, we have reduced it to 10 slides. So 10 slides and you sign it. So and then the data privacy lawyers came to us from Deutsche Telekom. So, oh yes, this partner has also to sign our security requirements. And they came with 2 centimeter double printed English laws and they have to sign it. Nobody's signing this. That doesn't work.
Right.
So that's the reason now we have a partner ecosystem with more than 500 partners. If all of these 500 partners have signed something like this, we have our own room only for this. That means it has to work much smarter. That's the reason, as independent as possible, backed by a huge organization, but as independent as possible, so that we are also as agnostic.
Got it.
There was never an idea only to use Reliance technology. It was as open. You can place us anywhere.
Got it.
That's very important.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. Thank you. So, Klutto, coming to you, you're a chief technologist, you're a IITian, and back to what Pamela was saying, the India asks are very important, the India Innovation Charter is very important. Now, you're probably the best placed person in the country right now to talk about these India asks. So give me a sense of where the global 5G sort of standards, or let's say the technology, fails to sort of serve India needs.
So just like Pamela said, we are the followers of the technology. So whatever is designed for somewhere else, we are using it. Okay, if you look at from the technological point of view, okay, you can design a good technology if it is designed for your needs. Okay, and that will help us in utilizing the resources available in the best possible way. Okay, for example, spectrum. You can do very good spectral efficiency if it is designed for a low-speed scenario rather than the technology designed for high-speed scenario and use it for low-speed scenario.
Right.
This is one of the aspects. Then there are many other things. The size of the cell, whatever she said. The size of the cell has lot of implications. For example, size of the cell of 500 meters and you see LMLC is 6 kilometers. Okay, so you look at the difference. How many base stations you have to put to cover the same area without any coverage holes? That much amount of investment you have to do in the rural areas where you don't need that much. So you can have less number of base stations and still cover the entire area.
Right.
You see the amount of gains you get. This is another aspect. Then if you look at from the long-term aspect, nothing to do with the immediate need. Of course, security is very important. But India cannot rely on imported technology forever. Next to oil, if you look at the import bill is telecom. Almost everything is imported from outside, maybe some assembling happening here.
Right.
Okay, so if you want to stop that, innovation should happen in India.
And you were the co-innovator for India's first 5G patent, really.
I am one of the inventor, but that is one which got widely published, but we have a lot more patents.
So congratulations, first of all, the fact that the patent was accepted by 3GPP body. But tell me, since that patent did come out, it's been a couple of years, what's been the progress on that, one? And second of all, talk to us about your body of research. That where is it headed? Let's say from an India innovation standpoint, where can we expect sort of work coming out of CEWIT?
Yeah, so coming back to this research part, whatever invention we had, that is the first breakthrough. That again, it comes from the LMLC thing. Okay, because whatever waveform defined this may not have the coverage whatever you want. Okay, for example, there is OFDM or SCFDMA, single carrier FDMA. These are the two waveforms defined in 5GNR. Okay, it has a PAPR. The moment you have a PAPR, it cannot utilize the power amplifier to the best of its efficiency, which may not allow the signal to travel to a larger distance.
Okay.
So we proposed a thing called Pi by 2 BPSK based transmission, which has some 3 dB power gain compared to the other thing, which will help us to increase the coverage area by 1.4 times and the coverage area by 2 times.
Right.
Okay, so that is one of the innovation whatever we had. Apart from that, we had many more innovations, which is part of the 5G specifications now. And coming to the where you are heading in for future. Okay, there are many things we have to look at. One is, say, of course, most of our research is funded by government, since we don't have a lot of Indian companies here. And Ministry of Electronics and Communication, Electronics and Information Technology is funding mostly, and now DOT also started funding. Okay, so compared to the earlier years, we fully focused on research and taking proposal to standards and ensure that we get some of the ideas incorporated into standards. Of course, there were a lot of resistance. That's why we had this TSDSI and all. But going forward, if you look at the next, we are entering the next phase. Now we are in a scenario where we can innovate.
Right.
Okay, but how will you know that whatever you are innovating will work or not? Okay, we never had a platform to do that. Okay, whereas in developed countries or in other countries like, for example, even Sweden or Finland or US or China, for that matter, they have very big companies where they have these test beds and all to test their ideas.
Right.
Whereas here we don't have.
Got it.
So
Thank
the
you.
thing is, DOT funded this 5G testbed project, which is a very big chunk of money invested for the next 3 years. Already 1 year gone. And we will be developing an end-to-end testbed, 5G NR testbed, which has the core, NR standalone core. Then you have the G-Node B, and then you have the UE. All are developed in-house with all our proprietary implementation, and we want to showcase that. And we want to test all the innovations, whatever we are doing, which will pave the way for future innovations to happen. And it could end up in bringing up many startups.
Right. I want to begin Mr. Mishra now, because it's a very critical point that you've made. Mr. Mishra, you're the most looked after person right now in the town. You come from the regulator, so everyone's watching you very closely now. So the one fact that came out of all of these wonderful conversations was the need for a 5G backend. Clearly. And one of the biggest critiques of India has been our slow rollout. The fact that globally today, there are 16 live 5G networks, but we're still sort of discussing spectrum price. People, private players still aren't convinced that they really want to pay as much. So the affordability and availability sort of is a big question mark right now, which is sort of clearly impacting field tests, because the idea is 90-day window for availability means that there's not enough time for setup and trials. Now, as a regulator, please tell us your point of view wherein you will help sort of facilitate these trials and sort of a lot of these use cases which are lying in a sort of a nice box and locked up will actually be unlocked.
I wish I would have come in the morning. In fact, my colleague was here, and some of the things, I think you have discussed this aspect in the morning. One of the things which you posed me when you send me something, you said what regulator can do to make spectrum affordable. This is a very difficult question. The moment you say affordable, then you say optimal pricing. So now, and maybe reasonable. No, these words are very, very difficult words. When we do public consultation, TRAI does everything in public. So we put a consultation paper and we say that these are the methodologies we are going to adopt. This is the data, these are the assumptions, and we make. Unfortunately, our problem is, I'll tell you shortly, the audience also, what we have done to make it affordable from our point of view. But then before that, I'll tell you my problem.
Please.
And you must appreciate that. Because we have got a lot of wisdom after we have given our recommendations. So all the editorials, they're full. We have not stopped editors. We have not stopped the journalists or the consultants, anybody who have written later on. We have not stopped them from coming. Anybody can come into our OHDs. Anybody can write. In the consultation which we had on price discrimination, we received 24 million comments from all over world when we say stop free basic. So we got, so anybody all over world, so at least You people should also write. I think people should write. Tell us, what is affordable? We raise these questions.
Very good point.
What is optimal? What is reasonable? What is wrong with our methodology? Should we use this or not? Unfortunately, ITU also supports us. It comes out with a technical paper with our methodologies. It says that these are the standard methodologies. ICRIER comes out with a paper. They also they are also not able to find out anyway. But that is the way all the consultants do. And you know what is the problem? Now, a person who is going to purchase spectrum, he has his own estimation. Ultimately, he will bid. Now, I am trying to look into his mind, even though I am not going to conduct auction. That will be done by, and I don't know what price. Fortunately, in this country, never government has told regulator they want this price. When we ask FCC, when we ask Ofcom, they get a hint from government. Okay, this much money we want. You sell this much spectrum only. So we have been telling government, you sell everything, put everything on table. So this time also we have told. We could have, if we intended revenue maximization, we could have happily recommended, don't auction everything, auction a little bit, let people die. We would not do that. We have always said, put whatever you have, let it be abundant, let people not purchase 50% of it, but if somebody needs, let him purchase. Let him purchase. Now, another problem which I have as a regulator is that there are certain data available. You can't ignore it. You know, the whole thing has been decided by Supreme Court, and they have said that, okay, you do it in a fair manner. And everybody, even the stakeholders have said, do it in a fair manner. Now, problem is nobody tells me those keys. How do I be fair? So I have to depend upon whatever I have, what is available to me, we decide. Now, what did I do to make it affordable? You know,
don't worry,
can you go?
carry
Okay,
on.
Okay. So what did we do? Now, you know, it takes a big, I would say, courage for any regulator, any policymaker or world. Some countries have done it, of course. Finland has done it, somebody else has done it. They have different problems. They have different conditions. So, and I can discuss it out in a seminar full day,
Right.
how they are different. So, they have different issues. So, we did not go by international prices. We had all the data. Even when we are provoked, people are writing, okay, South Korea has priced it cheaper than you. I know. What is South Korea and what is India? So you must know what is our size? What is the number of people that are going to use? There's so many other factors we have to look into. And we have always desisted in last 5-6 years, or maybe two regulators, I would say, regulatory bodies headed by Mr. Khullar, Mr. Sharma. Every time we resisted that way. Even now, this time we know that prices per pop, that is the industry norm, that is the norm that is being used all over. Okay, when you talk to any expert who does evaluation and reserve price job, he will give you price per pop. FCC does it. So if every whole world is doing, why you are telling me that you compare something else? Why you are saying that, okay, whole India price you compare with Korea? That is wrong. You compare.
But sir, the fact is that as a country, we still don't have trials. In the end, these are great conversations to be had. But if the trials don't happen on the ground, action really doesn't take off, right? How do we go to trials, sir?
Give me 1 minute. So what happened? We slashed the price last time 43%. Why did we do that? We had got studies. We collected material. We also told all stakeholders, please help us, enable us. We got some support. Maybe we got data from Huawei's trials, or maybe Ericsson's trials, Nokia's trials. And we said, okay, we compared, and then we slashed it 43%. Nowhere in the world people have slashed like this. Never. So you accept that, okay, I would like to slash it. Similarly, we have price. When we had international prices before us, how can you slash it beyond that? That also we have kept very low. And that's why we did not use it. If we use those prices, government cannot. But then still you have opportunity, stakeholders have opportunity. Let them go and tell government policymaker, okay, this is the thing, how we can reduce. So we have done our bit. We cannot do everything. Now we cannot go and auction. People have bid in the past very high. People have traded very high. Now, if those prices are available, how do you reduce it? When we compared with the...
Sure, we get the point.
so-
But let's get to the trials.
Okay.
Ultimately, all eyes are on you for trials. How do you get to trials, sir?
Now, trials. Now, problem is that trials with us. Now, for trial, actually, TRAI does not deal with this. You have to raise this question to DOT, but then I can tell you, DOT always allows such things on a concession, very concessional. For trials, they have always had done it earlier also, and they can do it. Now, industry can approach them. That is their job. That is they should go and talk to them. And I'm sure that policymakers will not hesitate in giving this. I'm sure that they have already announced it.
Okay, so another contentious issue.
And we'll be happy to support that.
Another contentious issue in this country is about low penetration of fiber.
Yeah,
right?
that's...
Please talk, and although there's a national fiber authority which is being planned,
yeah.
but it's still in the works, right? It's not live yet. Now tell us what's TRAI doing about the fiber penetration in the country, because it's very important for 5G rollout, right?
Yeah, that's true. This is for, I would say, maybe for last 5 years, I have been associated with TRAI. But even prior to that, I would say, right from, I think, 2013, we have been writing to government that, okay, put money in that, encourage operators to put money. We have been telling operators, we have recommended, there is series of recommendations we have made that you do it. And we have also said that you incentivize. Not only this, we have also written to Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, they have cable network, we said use that.
Right.
That is a recommendation we have there.
Right.
We have also said that, okay, rationalize your levies of license fee, taxes and all for that. You promote that. So all those recommendations are already in public domain.
Right.
And not that if something has not been accepted or in the process, we have stopped doing so. We understand that is very important, and that is one of our high agendas where we'll be pushing government to accept our recommendations, or maybe we'll come out with more recommendations.
Please.
How to pin. Because without that, you go on talking about 5G, it is not going to happen.
You need high speed,
Yes.
back end, otherwise it's not going to be real.
See, most of the backhaul is not on, say fiber, and that's the problem. And maybe, say, a lot of USO fund is lying. We have said that you utilize, unutilized USO fund is there. You should encourage everybody. We have been recommending. So you involve all, say, stakeholders. They could be, the operators could be there. There can be, like you have infrastructure providers, they could be there.
Okay, thank you.
So several players you can bring in. And all these recommendations are in public domain.
Sure, thank you very much. Really appreciate that. I'll go to the operator side
Thank
now,
you.
and I'll speak to Mr. Sundi Raman. You're sort of fresh into Airtel. You're heading up IoT. I've been tracking Airtel as an analyst for about 15 years now, and I remember talking to Airtel about the enterprise story. It was rather broken back in point in time, and from Pi++ strategy, you've sort of come a long way where, apps and now IoT is a very strong part of the forte. Can you talk to us specifically about IoT? What Airtel is doing in terms of investments to solidify its presence in the IoT arena? And more importantly, how much of that is cross-sected with the eventual launch of 5G at some stage?
Well, thanks, Sanchit, for having me here. Thanks, everyone. It was actually a very interesting discussion here. So when probably Airtel started like a year or so ago about how do we think ourselves and in terms of what we are trying to achieve here in India. We said our vision is to be the digital backbone of India.
Right.
That's basically how we think about Airtel. And to that extent, there are a lot of things we are actually doing, and IoT is one of the key enablers of being the digital backbone of India. And so in this last 1 year, we have done lots of investments, both in terms of people getting hired, developing platforms, developing technology. We have had some wins. I'll talk about a few of them. We also had learnings that we took. Because if you look at IoT ecosystem, it is not a product you can give to somebody. It is a big, multiple players are involved to make something happen or create a value for a customer. Like Gaurav talked about a little bit about the complexity involved. It is not about 5G. There's actually devices. Inside the device, there's a chip, which is actually very expensive for an Indian market. So for us to actually do the India-specific IoT solutions, you need to be very price conscious. That's really, really important distinction between India and other parts of the world. where the customer's buying power is there and they can actually pay for. Here, you have to convert those dollar figures into Indian rupees. And you just compare what, as a telco, we earn. 250 rupees is probably our ARPU, maybe somewhere around that. Whereas in T-Mobile, where I'm a subscriber, I used to pay $120. It's a huge difference. So that puts a lot of pressure in how we innovate, and that's where we actually also figure out how do you do better job. And so, but this year, we have started to see the signals of our investments taking fruition, right? So one is, very good example is MG Motors, our partnership with UNLIMIT, enabling MG Motors there, first internet car, and truly out there in terms of vision. Then we also enabled Apollo hospitals. So they had a very unique requirement that they want to create remote healthcare centers to get into villages and rural areas. And they wanted to understand and manage their workforce. So one interesting thing we learned, or I learned myself, is companies in India actually have a huge asset, which is humans. And humans actually have a device, which is a phone. So it is actually a very good way to actually manage your workforce. And that is nothing but IoT.
Right.
Right, so that's how we are investing. So Apollo Hospital, we enabled them to improve the productivity of the workforce. Then we went into logistics, where again the price sensitivity scenarios came in and we solved for it. So we are on this journey that we are going. We had some wins, and we are also going into energy management, which is another big problem space for India. So as a telco, we believe that we have the ammunition, or what you call the wherewithal, but we have to be conscious around where the ROI of the customer meets.
You also announced something called X Labs. Now, give us a sense, because it's a big, bold aim, and I'm a very cynical analyst. So talk to us about X Labs, because you want to create a platform and you want to get developers onto it, and it's a very hard journey, because developers are sort of have a barrage of messages coming in from probably a lot of competition, direct and indirect. How do you get those eyeballs, and where is sort of X Labs reached on that platform?
Yeah, so when you say platform, in IoT especially, there are many different layers of platforms. Yeah. So specifically, if you talk about, we actually have a platform that enables people to manage their devices. There's a platform where people can build applications. So there's a whole bunch of platform capabilities we have. But I will just go back and put some context here in terms of Airtel X Labs and how we thought about it. In the case of, when you talk about 5G and all, we are very focused in enabling smart or intelligent connectivity, which is a combination of network, which can be 2G, 4G, or 5G, or whatever connectivity you have. The other aspect is open telco. So we believe in open telco, opening up APIs into our network.
Got it.
We also believe in bringing our forte in artificial intelligence and machine learning. And people might wonder, what is telco doing in artificial intelligence and machine learning? We actually process lots of data every day to drive our own business. And we want to bring that out to people. So the combination of this is what we call intelligent or smart connectivity. And Airtel X Labs is just the umbrella term for us to think about that goal always. And in terms of adoption of this platform, we have, Kent dashboard cams they make. Right. They're using our platform to manage their devices, which they sell. The other thing we also realize is, as a telco, we also have our own devices spread across all the households in India. So we have millions of devices people are using. So our platform powers those devices too. So those are developers, our own internal developers using our own platform. That was actually very insightful for us, because we understood what are the challenges in the Indian ecosystem of a developer. The tool set and all.
I have to be honest, and don't get me wrong, it's on the record, everything's on the record here anyway, right? So, telcos, it's not the strength of telcos to really work with developers very strongly and come out with a platform like this. So, there's a ton of cynicism out there, which sort of talks to around the fact that telcos globally, and this is not about Airtel, probably maybe success is hard to come by.
I think telcos can innovate, and we will innovate, and the cynicism actually helps us, that they are challenging us to actually innovate here.
Okay.
And that's how we think about this. And if as long as we are focused on what we want to achieve, we will do it. We are trying to attract talent into Airtel to actually change how we want to think about One Airtel as the company. We are both from people and technology. We are trying to move the needle there. So there's a lot of combination of things that is happening in Airtel for us to actually try to take on this challenge of cynicism from the general public about telcos not innovating. And I think one example of a telco that is actually innovating outside, not globally, would be T-Mobile. Right? They have tried to come out as Un-carrier, and they have done a good job of it. So there is a way for telcos to innovate if they're focused, and we will try our best there.
Wish you the very best. I was just nudging you around, nothing else.
Can I just, I know you got to ask question. I want to just, because we just had a regulator also guide us. I think, while we are moving to 5G, I think I want to also share that there is a lot of restrictiveness that we have today. To give you some background, in the Hector, for example, in the connected car, there's an embedded SIM, which is the SIM is part of the car body. But now in that SIM, for private APN, we have limitations to having only 2 IP addresses. So while connected mobility actually means that the car is a platform, and you have a lifetime of services being offered. So entrepreneurs, startups can bring in, work on technologies, work on some innovative ways, whether it's services or user experiences. But then there are these restrictiveness that kind of limits us. For example, utilities, you can have a payment portal right in the car. So just imagine you drive the car to a petrol station. He fills up the petrol or the fuel, and from your screen you can just say pay, and it gets paid.
Right.
So some of these restrictiveness, I think, would be great if we can clear these up in the journey towards 5G.
Got it.
And of course, 5G will help because, when you have over-the-air updates, like you have on your mobile, so the Hector also comes with the first over-the-air update. So that quantum of firmware update will get expedited. So beyond utilities, this will really be helpful overall.
Excellent. I think we live in very fascinating times when technology can make all of this real at some stage. Talking about another very fascinating use case is the Kumbh Mela. We've all heard of Kumbh Mela? Of course, thank you very much. And Kumbh Mela was managed by L&T, and it's a very fascinating use case. So Purushottam, talk to us about how did L&T use sort of IoT and sort of networks to manage Kumbh Mela, because it's like a swarm of people coming into a very small place. How did sort of L&T champion it?
Yeah, before I go to Kumbh Mela, I think it was a very exciting day. A lot of forward-looking statements like future will be bright, IoT, AI will be there in next maybe few months. Lab trials happening, standards evolving. So I represent L&T's Smart World division, which is basically a startup within the larger L&T umbrella with a $1 billion plus order booking. So that's the only difference between the startup part. We have been managing some very large cities. We have almost like 25 odd cities which we are managing right now. And while we are talking that future is bright, we are already in the middle of some of the largest implementation of IoT and AI. And I'll give you some 3-4 stories, and Kumbh Mela is one of them. Kumbh Mela, for maybe larger people, number of people, I think 130 million people visit Kumbh Mela. It's bigger than a city when it comes into the place. And we had deployed some 800 cameras and around 20 drones and a lot of balloon cameras, kind of use cases which I think people think that, cameras deployed and maybe it's a post-investigative thing. We were able to do facial recognition through the criminal databases. We could figure out a lot of people who were supposed to be not there. We could even predict stampedes in few situations. You know how stampedes, like you can detect the crowd flow. You actually count people from moving from one camera to other camera, and in case there is through the flow, if it is not moving as per the right thing, we can predict how it's going to happen, and you can move the reacting agencies to manage that part. We were able to look at the vehicle detection, kind of figuring out what needs to go in there, traffic, and there were 100,000 toilets, 20,000 people who were supposed to, all the workers managing. It was one of the biggest use case of IoT and AI. Maybe let me tell you one more story. So Kumbh Mela was one of the biggest, I think, global examples of how technology can come to play.
Purushottam,
where-
before you move on, how would, let's say, a same Kumbh Mela 4-5 years from now with 5G look like for you? What will change?
Yeah, okay. So I think 5G is something which brings obviously the connectivity to the next level. However, we were dealing with very different kind of issues on the ground, and that's the truth of it, right? Truth of it is that to connect these things on the ground, it takes a lot of physical plumbing issues, and they are the bigger issues today. And 5G perhaps moving ahead, first of all, I don't know whether the real problem is technology or spectrum only. The real problem is going to be the infrastructure. In a square kilometer of area, you will actually, to do a real 5G, you will need around 25 cells. To do 25 cells, you need to have 25 fiber points. In Pune city, you will be surprised that we were trying to connect some 300 locations of cameras and hotspots and Wi-Fi hotspots. And the nearest service provider, and we're talking of Airtel and everybody trying to deploy IoT, the nearest service provider somebody could come in was BSNL, and they said that to connect these 300 locations, we need another 370 kilometers of optical fiber, which would mean that you needed around 2 kilometers or 1.5, 2 kilometers of additional fiber connectivity, the last mile, what we call it. The real problem of 5G is going to be that fiber last mile. We don't have fiber on the ground. And when we say 5G, how will it change? I think first we'll have to solve these issues of fiber right of way, maybe tower, number of cells you need for doing this kind of a fiber connectivity. You need 8 kilometers of root kilometers of optical fiber in every square kilometer. How will we do that is going to be another big issue. So beside all these kind of issues that we talk of, standards, technology, spectrum issues, how will we solve those issues is going to be one bigger problem, and we are dealing with on a daily basis. We are doing right now 25 odd cities. In Mumbai, we have deployed around 6,000 cameras. And we say that, okay, one of the biggest use case of IoT and AI, I think people think that, okay, we are just managing the cameras, looking at those big command control walls. Practically, we are generating thousands of e-challans every day. There are 1,500 junctions in Mumbai. We are able to detect which vehicle crossed the red light. We are able to read your number plates and send the evidence directly to your phone. Yes, there are databases which are not connected. That's a different kind of problem. That's not a IoT AI problem. That's a bigger problem that people don't have standardized number plates. But we can generate thousands of challans. And that's caused a huge change of approach within such large managed cities. Hyderabad, we have 10,000 plus cameras. So that's something which is evolving part. We can detect criminals. We can also trace on follow the vehicles in case there is a particular vehicle which has caused accident and is moving through cameras. We can even detect people falling down. We have figured out pickpockets. We have figured out drug peddlers. So it's a scene which is moving a lot. And and we're talking of cities which is generating more than 60% of the GDP. And another big IoT use case I will tell you. We are rolling out 5 million smart meters in 2 states today. It's a part of the larger project which is 250 million smart meters. Now, we already rolled out 500,000 meters. And they're all connected with, they are one of the biggest devices which is going in your homes. And the kind of data that we can collect, if we are now analyzing and what could be used for, we can detect every device like, okay, we can even check whether 3-star AC can be serviced, when does it need service, and if you replace with 5-star, how much monthly bill you can save. We can detect exactly the number of devices in your home because the data point that we collect every few seconds from your homes is good enough for generating through AI tools, generating good enough data to figure out what exactly can be changed within our home. The same data can be used by people like business owners, whether it is going to be appliance owners or whether it's going to be people like urban class to deliver you better services. There's going to be same data is going to be used by the power utilities to figure out how the loads have to be purchased from the pool and to give you the best optimized model. So things are changing, and yes, things will be much better moving ahead. But already there are use cases of IoT and AI which are getting implemented all across, whether it's urban India or it's going to slowly evolve into rural.
Let's say if fiber did exist, then the possibilities in a smart city would be much higher, right? So
it's a big problem of fiber. Like we are trying to, I will give you another use case. Odisha, we had a recent cyclone. I don't know, most of you people perhaps don't know. L&T was the one who was managing the whole coastal line, giving, disseminating like all the messages to the people, coastal complete thing. And yes, we did not push because L&T is a very conservative brand in terms of pushing our use cases in terms of public visibility. But we could connect, we could save so many lives, we could save so much of damage by just giving the information at the right time. But the bigger problem was not IoT, AI or technology. Bigger problem was to connect those towers through which we were distributing messages, to connect those towers with fiber or with any other radio signal. We struggled for almost like 24 months. We could not get connected. Same issue is happening in Maharashtra, where we have a similar project. We are supposed to do the whole coastal belt of Maharashtra. All the top service providers, and it's not their fault. It's not because they have not been able to take the fiber to those places. We cannot connect those towers because for the last 2 months we have been struggling to get a code from any of these telcos to connect those towers. There is no fiber. There is no reachability. So I think those plumbing issues need to be solved. While IoT and AI are evolving, they're solving use cases, and I have seen your car, wonderful car, with all the partners herein, really contributing, and standards evolving. I believe the need is to solve the plumbing issues.
So the communication is directly at you, if you realize what's happening in the last 5 minutes. Anyway, so moving on, saving lives, great point, Purushottam, thank you. Saving the best for the last, we've got Kapil from HCL Healthcare. Talking about saving lives, since you're from HCL Healthcare, what's happening in healthcare is a lot of IoT devices are sort of penetrating, let's say, traditional medicinal areas, and one of them is, of course, is surgery. But the fact is, think about all of this change, sans any Data Privacy Act, sans any Data Residency Act, and it's about patient care ultimately. So with privacy concerns and security issues heightened in today's point in time, talk to us how, let's say, you are solving a lot of these issues in healthcare domain.
Yeah. So you rightly pointed out that's one of the biggest concern in the healthcare. First, we have to understand why we are using IoT and then what use cases are required security. In terms of the IoT in healthcare, is very essential now these days. Reason is because now our lifestyle, social style, and the social economy status has been changed totally. If you look at earlier, person were only looking for the hospital, where if they have any trouble, they have to run away and they go there. But now these days, they want to stay back at home and they want to basically, somebody have to look in. I don't have time every time to go to hospital. I'm so busy. So different use cases, until unless I'm not having emergency, I'll not prefer to go to hospital. So trend has been changed. So if you see that is why like healthcare 4.0 is also introduced, because there is so much modernization has happened. People really don't want to go. That is why IoT is picking up in the healthcare, because they are giving you a lot of information, because somebody have to watch that information, analyze that information, predict that information, and take a decision over on that. Let's take example of a cardiovascular patient. A guy has a cardio problem, went to the hospital, surgery done. Within the next day, doctor will ask, okay, you can go now. And he will give you a monitoring device and he will set the parameter. If any parameter is breaching the threshold, like he will be alerted. And what is the advantage of? Second day, if I'm sending a critical patient to home, you will not trust on the hospital, you will not definitely trust on the doctor. But everything is surround the device. But what is the benefit? Both the guys will have the benefit. One is the patient, because he can basically get the home care. Basically, he will be monitored 24 hours. Directly, doctor can basically monitor you, what is your health status going on. Secondly, the hospital is also. Hospital bed will be cleared so that they can take in the next critical patient. That's another advantage of it. But if we want to run this kind of scenario, you need a very good bandwidth. If I'm sending back a critical patient by giving an IoT device, go back to home, and the guy who had the cardio attack just day back. Just imagine, right? He will not trust. But everything is possible because so many successful cases are in China, Japan, US, is really floating around. And that is basically cutting off your bills as well. So that's the power of the 5G which we need in India. That's what is one of the ask, my ask with the Indian government. We have to have enable this kind of facility in India immediately. Another use case is remote. So many remote innovations are happening. People are going in rural areas, urban areas, and they are basically providing the facility. The problem is that the connectivity. So whenever these things are coming in the market, so there are so many innovation is also coming in the market. When they saw 4G is not basically sufficing the connectivity fully, so what they did, they created the offline IoT devices, which can basically cater some information for some time. Whenever tower pings up, network comes up, they will basically load that information back in the server. But if I'm monitoring you, I need data immediately. If you have a criticality, I need that data, that information immediately, not later, because it's health. And we can't take such kind of risk in the health. That is why every doctor saying, we are watching you, and if they are setting the alert and alert is not coming on time, they cannot basically
So
get
you're
the
saying
service.
5G is probably the answer.
Yes, that is.
But the fact is we are in India, and there's a bigger G, which is a bigger problem for us to solve, which is Dr. G.
Yeah.
What happens is that, this doctor who we want to enable with all these brilliant IoT devices doesn't want to use those devices. I'll tell you, I come from a medical family as well, and I have a lot of doctors in my family, and you ask them about using a device, and they are the least to move. They're the slowest to move. So 5G is fine, but what happens to the Dr. G? Can you talk to us about that?
I can debate it
All the
over on
Dr.
it
Gs
because
are
now
on
the trend
strike
has been
today,
changed.
by the way. They are on strike today, by the way.
Yeah. Now the trend has been changed. Look at the IoT device. First of all, common IoT device. I'm sure everybody must be having in this room, either in a phone or in a wearable format. Everybody want to basically track the steps.
Right.
Right? That's the first thing like we do
Right.
whenever we are concerned for the health of something. Okay. So iPhone is coming, Samsung, and so you name the brand, they are having a health application by default, whether you are using or not, it is counting your steps. And another thing is now people are having a lot of smartwatches, that is also there. Coming to the point, what you were mentioning is like, now doctors don't want to basically deal with a lot of patients every day, 200, 250 patients every day.
Yeah.
In a 5 hours time, 4 hours time. It's very, very difficult. Everybody want 30 minutes interaction with the doctor with the eye contact. If 250 people are standing and waiting for me, how I basically give the 30 minutes to everyone? Not possible. That is why these things basically gradually going towards the IoT. Reason is you will feed a lot of information in the portal, in somewhere, like, so that doctor once see your data, he will aware fully what is the problem you have, right? So that he will not spend 30 minutes over on you, he can spend 5 minutes and decide it. Another advantage is if he having the trends. So there is an analytics running behind that, that can help to the doctor to take the decision faster. Otherwise, he will ask, okay, go for the 3 more tests and come back again.
So we get the point. No, great. Excellent. But you know what worries me? And I'll tell you, so we're going to end with this. And in the interest of time, there's been ringing bells again and again on us, right? The bigger problem ahead of us is not IoT or 5G. The bigger problem is the medical fraternity using WhatsApp to discuss your and my case.
Yeah.
So on that note, we'll sort of end this session. But in the closure, we'll do something, a surprise for all my panelists. We're going to end this session in a Twitter style. So we're starting from Mr. Mishra. Please summarize in 140 characters why the future beholds in 5G. 140 characters are not so difficult. Twitter style, sir, Twitter style. So I'm saying, why is the future better with 5G?
Future is better for 5G because there is so much enthusiasm in country about it.
Okay, wonderful.
I think it opens an entire new dimension of possibilities. The kind of coexistence of auto manufacturers, if I talk of automotive space, developers, or technology partners, mobility partners, all of them coming together to create, I would say, giving all our customers, the advantages of utilities,
That's the third tweet by
safety,
now,
and, and entertainment.
Thank you very much, ma'am. 140 characters, ma'am.
Okay, it's really, as they say, the next big industrial revolution that it can cause. And it's about bringing all these technologies, what we saw with voice telecom, and the entire data stack up to AI and ML, all of that converging and going into all the verticals, all aspects, the way we live, the way we work, the way we play, the way we go to war, the way we go to banks is all going to be transformed with 5G.
Thank you very much. Thank you. 140 characters, sir. I'm watching.
It directly feeds the human instinct. Dil mange more.
Dil mange
it's
more.
more for everything.
That's a very worthy of a tweet. Dil mange more 5G. Wonderful, sir. Up to you.
It completely transformed the governance, whatever it can do, all kind of things, and the amount of data which could be collected will help in doing lot of things in a very optimal way, and it will directly contributes to the growth of the country.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Purushottam.
Yeah, I think, in my understanding, internet will become invisible. Internet will become invisible.
Okay.
But we need to solve plumbing issues.
All eyes on you, sir, today.
I think take it or leave it, when we talk about digital India or connected world, it has to happen. When we know it has to happen, it will bring a lot of benefits to our society. So think it from a societal perspective, 5G will happen.
Wonderful, thank you. Last but not the least.
Yeah, it will create a lot of job opportunities and innovation as well.
Wonderful, thank you. Can we have a large round of applause for the panelists, please? And can we have a larger round of applause for being a patient audience, please?